So welcome to Stressed. It's time to reclaim your focus. And I thank you all for sharing your autobiography titles in the chat. We're going to talk about the science of stress because you really can't rid your life of stress. It's going to happen, but you can change your relationship to stress. So I invite you to put down your phone, to put down your work, to stop multitasking, and have some paper nearby. And as we're doing, be open to the possibility of sharing. So my name is Dory Kellner, and I am the managing partner of Sleight of Hand Studios. We've been in the Drupal community for well over a decade. And my autobiography is going to be called She Was Enough. And that is because I have suffered from stress my entire life. It was anxiety, it was depression, it was burnout, it was panic. I've seen it all. And most of the time, it was work-related. I left 2 jobs over stress. And then I decided a few years back when Drupal 8 was launched, and my time as a site builder and themer looked like it would require an awful lot of retraining. I finally decided that I was going to move in the direction that my heart told me to go, which was to become a meditation teacher. So I studied at Brown University, and I have my certification in mindfulness-based stress reduction. And I also have a certification in facilitating workplace mindfulness. So we're going to start today by looking at some of the statistics about stress, and then moving on into the science, and then into some ways that you can learn to reshape your relationship to stress. So in July 2020, the National Bureau of Economic Relations published a study that was done by Harvard and New York University. Over 3 million people, 21,000 companies across 16 cities in North America, the Middle East, and Europe. And they were discussing the impact of COVID-19 on the nature of work. And we're all working longer days. We're holding more meetings, we're sending more email. Other studies of VPN data show that people are putting in an extra 3 hours a day and working at really odd hours, basically due to blurred schedules and boundaries between home and work life. And then other studies, like from Stanford, was a study of 228 studies. So it was a meta-analysis, and it examined how 10 common workplace stressors affect a person's health. So we're all sitting in this place of unbelievable stress. And so you're in good company if you're feeling stressed right now. I think I was stressed even before the pandemic, but this was certainly a banner year for my stress levels. So you could see that stress results in death that's comparable to heart disease and accidents. It's like the 4th and 5th largest causes of death. So what I'd like to do to start is for us to examine our own place right now. Where are we sitting? So I'm going to ask everyone, invite you all to come into a comfortable posture in your seat for just a few moments. So a posture that's both at ease and also dignified. When you keep your back straight, you bring strength into your body, which is really helpful against stress. And you can keep your eyes open, or you can close them if you'd like. And begin to notice the thoughts that are swirling around in your mind. And be very specific. What are you thinking about? Where's your mind going? How are you mentally feeling? Now let's move to what you're experiencing right now in your heart. What specific feelings can you label? What is your general mood? And use words of emotion like joy or peace or discomfort, fear, frustration, exhaustion. And now notice what you're experiencing in your body, your posture, your senses, sights, sounds, tastes, point of contact with the chair or the floor. Maybe scan your body from your feet, your legs, your hips, torso, arms, hands, neck, head. What are you noticing right now? I invite you to take a couple of breaths. And if your eyes were closed, you can open them now. And I'd like everyone to switch over to the poll tab. It's the button right next to chat. And you're going to see a poll there. What is your level of stress? There are 5 options. Now that you're in touch with what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and the state of your body, choose one of the options for your stress level. I'm great, doing okay, I've been better, pretty bad, or distressed. I'll give everybody a moment to put in their answers. I don't know how to figure out that people have put in answers. So we'll just give this a try. And Michael, I don't see any results.
Dory, do you see them now? Do you see the show poll or show results?
I see a show results button, and when I click it, nothing happens.
I just clicked it and I'm seeing them. So
Can you share that with us,
yeah,
please?
so there's got 1 vote for I'm great, 13 votes for doing okay, 20 votes for I've been better, 13 votes for pretty bad, and 1 vote for distressed.
Well, that's a perfect bell curve. Thanks, Michael, for your help with that. So this is the guidance that we can provide for stress levels. You know, if you're feeling great or you're okay, then you're at a low stress level and you pretty much have some good coping techniques. If you've been better, maybe your radar can go up a little bit. You're maybe finding that some things are a little more difficult than they've been in the past. But if your stress is bad or you feel distressed right now, maybe you're tending to avoid things. Maybe you're shut down. You really aren't functioning optimally. And certainly if you're in the distressed state, I recommend reaching out to somebody for guidance and help. The things that we're going to talk about today are not a substitute for any mental health support. They are in addition to, and they align very beautifully with what a lot of mental health counselors provide to their clients. So let's start by talking about what is stress. So a stress is a reaction to any type of real or perceived threat or demand. So notice it says real or perceived. So that means anything that's a physical threat to you, or perhaps an emotional threat, a psychological threat. These are all causes of stress. It could be illness as well. It could be long or short term. It could be minor, major, or extreme, as extremely difficult to measure. There are very few ways that we have to measure a person's level of stress other than the self-reporting that you all just did with the poll. So you might have personal stress, so illness, a loss of relationship, some financial stress. You might have family stress, marriage and divorce, issues with children, moving your home, or death in the family. There might be work stress, a job, a new job, a boss, some bias, the workload, unemployment, or there might be environmental stress. We're all experiencing that now, technology, political stress, natural disasters, the pandemic, obviously. So let's say what this is. What is this to you? This is instinctual fear. In the chat, type in what you would do if you saw this tiger coming at you. Marcia says scream and run. Sarah says freeze and then run when the adrenaline hit. Right. Make yourself small and protected. Thank you, Larry. Take a photo. Freeze or run away, freeze, panic, yes. This is our survival instinct kicking in. Survival instinct is designed to protect us from physical threat. And we can see that in the brain. So we're being protected from physical harm. And the part of the brain that manages that for us is the amygdala. So this is the part of the brain that is our primitive brain. And what it does is it kicks in the adrenals. So we get our cortisol, our blood pressure goes up, our pulse goes up, and we get that tendency, which we call fight, flight, freeze, tend, or befriend. So we actually feel this happening to us. So yeah, maybe some of us can outrun a tiger, but mostly we're going to run away. And we're going to feel this in our body. So now in the chat, tell me, you've engaged with this tiger. Where do you feel it in your body? Stomach, legs, chest, everywhere, in your gut, in your spine, chest and stomach. Yeah. So this is an actual physiological reaction to our stress. Our pupils dilate, the mouth gets dry, the muscles tense, We start to sweat, our palms get sweaty, our body gets sweaty, the heart starts to race, our breath is faster, our blood pressure goes up, and our digestion completely shuts down. Okay? So that's why we want to engage with how our body feels. The reality is your body feels these reactions before your brain kicks in. So the better connection we have with our bodies, the quicker we can find that response and understand what's going on. So now there are other things that trigger us besides a physical reaction, right? So we had a physical threat. The tiger came at us. We froze, we ran, our heart raced. But there are emotional and psychological pain that cause real fear. We really feel like we're in grave danger. And a lot of people get that like just from public speaking. People who don't want to submit a session to DrupalCon because there's intense fear of public speaking. And the same thing happens. Your palms get sweaty, your shoulders get tight, right? So which one of these identity fears resonates with you? You can put that into the chat. And think about how do we keep these fears from holding us back so that they don't create so much stress in our lives? So there's that loss of freedom, that fear of being judged, getting hurt, feeling inadequate, that imposter syndrome. Yeah. Something bad happening, change, rejection, inadequacy, all of them. Inadequacy, failure, uncertainty, something bad happening. Yeah. These are real. Severe FOMO, which stresses me out, absolutely. And it's hard to choose. And these are real, and our bodies respond as if they are physical threats, right? So here is that amygdala again, seeing this type of innate fear in us, these psychological and emotional fears, and it's going to trigger. Now, when it triggers, the part of the brain that is actually supposed to help you through this goes offline, and that's your prefrontal cortex. Your prefrontal cortex is the center for problem solving. It is where all your critical thinking happens. But what's happening in your brain is that your amygdala is shutting off the prefrontal cortex. It's also shutting off the hippocampus, which is your memory center. So the primitive brain is hijacking all your higher level functions. Your brain shuts down and you can't think your way out of problems. You can't empathize with yourself. You can't understand where other people are coming from. And we're basically stuck in this autopilot situation. Okay? Everything shuts down. And this has happened to me over and over and over again. And the key to this is how do we bring the brain back online? Because we really don't need a fight, flight, freeze syndrome when we are confronted with these emotional challenges. What we need to do is think our way out of them. So when we have a stressor, it kicks off your stress baseline. So here's that tiger. Now let's pretend the tiger is approaching a zebra. The zebra is merrily eating his grass, enjoying his day in the sunshine, looks up, here comes the tiger. Zebra takes off. Okay? He doesn't think about taking off. The amygdala tells him time to run, and he runs. And when he outruns that tiger, he does what we've seen all our pets do. He stops and shakes. He's shaking out all the adrenaline. He's shaking out all the cortisol from his body. And then he goes back to eating. Well, we don't do that. Because we have higher brain function, what we tend to do is hold on to our stress. So we have that initial stressor, and then we don't go back down to our baseline. We don't shake it off. We hold on to it. We say, hey, oh, I should have done that differently. Or what if that happens again? And we raise our stress level a little bit. And then we hit another stressor, and we do the same thing. And we continuously raise our stress level. So what's happening is that our adrenals kick in, the cortisol goes up, the blood pressure goes up, the pulse goes up, and our perception is that we're in danger. So we hit fight, flight, freeze right there. Okay. And when we do this on a chronic basis over and over again, we start to experience high blood pressure, hyperarousal, headaches, backaches, sleep disorder, anxiety, depression. And in order to overcome those things, we overwork, we overeat, we get angry a lot, substance abuse, gambling, all sorts of self-destructive behaviors start kicking in. And if we let that go too long, we ultimately end up in breakdown. This is when we're exhausted, we have a complete loss of drive and apathy towards our work, we feel alienated, we feel depressed, and literally disease can come into play here. So your perception and your behavior are guided by these mental models in your mind. Okay, this is a thought process that you use to examine a problem or make sense of things. So you try to apply your mental model to every situation and you become very limited. So let's give an example here. Somebody came to me who was offered a vice presidency job and they felt they weren't good enough. They said they're not ready for that. Even after over 10 years in the workplace, they said they weren't ready for that. Instead of grabbing this opportunity for growth. So we build these models over our lifetime and we're constantly telling ourselves, you know, we're not good enough, or we're too busy, or that's not for me. And we really end up becoming stuck and on autopilot, and we allow our brains to shut down. So the thing that brings our brain back online is simply awareness. And awareness is actually a synonym for mindfulness. I know we're throwing the term mindfulness around a lot these days. You're seeing it a lot in the news. People are considering it a fad. But 40 years ago, John Kabat-Zinn created a program called Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction. And he defined mindfulness as paying attention on purpose in the present moment and without any judgment. And after over 40 years now, this was in 1979, so over 40 years ago, we have enough data to know that this type of awareness in the brain allows us to take our control back. It helps us get out of autopilot, and it allows you to discern what you're feeling in the moment without discounting your needs, by accepting a situation for what it is, by understanding that other people might have a different perspective and maybe limiting our judgment of them and of ourselves. So what awareness does is it turns on the connection between the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala and the hippocampus. So that when the amygdala triggers and says, we're in danger here, the other parts of your brain can bring you back and say, wait a minute, this isn't physical danger. What other way can I respond to this? Okay. So I know we all have that situation where somebody comes at us with a request or a desire or an opinion that we don't like. And oftentimes our reaction is simply to argue with them, get angry, get hurt. And instead, can we turn on our minds and come up with a more effective way of dealing with what's going on? So that will shut off the amygdala at the right time. So we have this merry-go-round of life, right? And we're trying to jump off. Our minds are racing, we're busy. And there are 3 ways to get off, which are also the 3 doors that can get you into awareness. So you want to catch yourself before you react the way you always have. Okay, so instead of jumping at somebody who asks you for a favor, we want to take a breath and go, okay, how am I feeling right now? Getting out of that autopilot reaction is going to help lower your stress. So the first thing to do is be aware that all those thoughts running around in your head, they're not really facts. They're stories. This is physiologically how our brain works. It just sees what's around it and then starts creating all these thoughts that come racing into your mind. So we're going to do a visualization right now. So imagine that you were just received a new assignment and your plate is full. And you're also concerned that maybe you don't really have all the skills you need to do that assignment. Where in your body are you feeling this? What fears are being triggered? And what are you thinking and feeling? And if you don't, you can put this in the chat if you'd like to come on the stage and talk about what you're thinking on this. Love to have you join on stage as well. So a new assignment, it's a lot of work. You're not really sure if you know how to do it. What are you thinking and feeling? Feel it in the chest and throat. Thank you, Kelly. Does anybody have a fear of saying no? Larry feels it in the gut. Yeah. Fear of saying no. Maybe a fear of looking silly or looking stupid. Can't say no. Fear of doubt, avoidance. Definitely a fear of saying no. My mind is racing. I feel it in my entire viscera, and I want to just just exhale a lot all the time. Fear of failure, right? So all these fears just freeze us up, and we can't say no. So what if we could? What if we could learn to say no? So here is the stress response that everybody's going through right now. Okay. And here is a different way to look at it. So of course we still have that physiological response, right? But our next perception is very similar to the first exercise we did, right? So becoming aware, where is my mind? Where is my heart? What is my body telling me? Just that one pause allows us to turn on the prefrontal cortex. Just bringing that awareness into the mind, into the body, and into the heart gives us the opportunity to reframe and say, what do I need right now? To be able to assess the options and the strategies, access this from within inside ourselves. And instead of building up stress, we start reaching for more positive coping techniques. And what all of this ultimately brings us to, instead of breakdown, is resilience, where we can come up with problem-focused strategies, we can recover our equilibrium, our calmness, our balance of mind, and determine what are we going to do with this situation that has us so inflamed. And we're going to talk about this a little bit more in detail a little later in the session. But before you're able to change your behavior, you actually need to do some inner work. Okay? You need to consider whether a mindfulness practice is going to be helpful in your life. And what mindfulness practice does, it makes you more aware and present. There are 3 types of mindfulness practices. There's meditation, there's mindful walking, where you literally walk nowhere, and there's mindful movement. So if you're doing yoga or qigong or tai chi, you're already there with that one, and you understand how the mind-body connection is really supported by a mindful movement practice. Meditation practice, unlike what most people think, is not about clearing your mind, and it's not about relaxing. You literally just have an anchor. So you either use your breath or your body sensations, or you could even use sound or sight. And every time your mind starts to wander and spin off, you bring yourself back to that anchor. You do it over and over again, and we see scientific proof that the prefrontal cortex actually grows. So in people who are 50 and 60 years old, who have a mindfulness practice, their prefrontal cortex looks like that of 20 and 30-year-olds. So we all know that the brain just starts to thin as we get older, but a mindfulness practice can help keep your brain resilient. Now, we don't have time today to go into how to meditate. So rather than doing that, what I would like to do with the rest of our time is talk about mindfulness in daily life. So just these kinds of situations, like the fear of getting an assignment we don't have time for, and figuring out how can we be more mindful when these situations face us. So I'm a believer in that a nice nature walk and a cup of tea and a bubble bath. Those are all great. And I'm sure we've all been told that those are solutions to our stress. But really, they're just temporary, and they might make me feel good for a few minutes, but then I'll get back to my desk and I'll feel the stress all over again. And then there's the camp that talks about work-life balance. And honestly, that's not a thing. It truly isn't. You really need to optimize your life at any given moment. And sometimes that means work takes your attention. And sometimes that means your family takes your attention. And sometimes that means yourself takes that attention. So thinking about work-life balance isn't really helpful either. What you can do is recognize that you can't prevent stress. So that's the thing number 1. You're not going to be able to prevent your stress. Okay? Come at this rest of this session with that acceptance. What you can do is change your response to your stressors. Okay? You can observe how you feel. You can learn to control only what you can. You can reframe challenges in your life as opportunities for growth, and you can embrace digital well-being. So we're going to talk about these 4 areas of stress and some exercises that we can do to combat the stress and help us change our relationship to it. The first one is the busy mind. That constant chatter that goes on in your head, and you think you're the only one who has that crazy busy mind, right? You're not, okay? Everybody sits there with this mental to-do list, planning and organizing and thinking if they don't do it themselves, it's not going to come out right, okay? We all sit there saying, why did I say that? I should have done that differently. Or What if I don't make the right choice? It's going to spiral out of control. What if I say no? My boss is going to get angry with me. You don't know that because you didn't say no yet, but that story is running in your mind, right? And then multitasking adds to this. You're doing 10 things at once, and your mind is designed to do one thing. Okay? That's how you optimize your prefrontal cortex, by doing one thing at a time. So I'm going to give you an exercise to stop the chatter. So when that exercise that we had with your big to-do list, and somebody comes in your office and throws a new project at you that is questionable at best for your skill level, you don't need to immediately react. When you immediately react, you're giving away your power because you haven't had the opportunity yet to think about what you want to do. Okay? So now visualize, you've got this big to-do list. Somebody came in and gave you more work. Now, just like we did in the opening, state what's happening within and around you. Every time you make a statement, say to yourself, what else? What do you see? What do you hear? How do you feel? You can even do that little body scan that we did, starting at your feet, working your way up your body, noticing the places of stress, noticing where the fear is sitting in your body. Not judging yourself, not saying, I should know how to handle this. Negative feelings are normal. Just don't identify with them. It's okay to say, I'm scared right now. I'm not sure what to do right now. I'm stressed right now. Okay? So it's not about stopping your thoughts. It's about guiding your thoughts to become in tune with the present moment. What is the context that you're in right now? And by engaging in this practice, by stopping, taking a breath, and observing what's going on around you, you can put things in perspective and you can come back into the present moment. Just the action of going through these questions is enough for the amygdala to give control back to the other parts of your brain and turn them back on. Now, sometimes you'll have an answer right away, and sometimes you don't. Sometimes that answer takes a week or a month. I had it once take me a year to figure out what the answer was to a big problem that I had. Okay? But you'll proceed when you're ready because you've turned your brain back on. So this is a really, really powerful technique, especially if you are not a meditator. This will give you a lot of similar capabilities to turn your brain back on when it's just running in 10 different directions. Okay, so Eric put in the chat, actually my boss taught me this trick, ask about what should be prioritized. And that is also going to turn your brain on because you're asking a question. However, when we're asking for prioritization, we're already giving away our power to say no. So we can maybe combine those two things together and say, perhaps I can take it on if you can help me understand what the priorities are. And that way you haven't already said yes. Okay. So this first tip is to start to focus on all your senses. You've got 6 of them. The 5 that we learned in school, and the 6th one is your mind. Focus on all your senses and bring your brain back online. So the second one we're going to talk about is the inner critic and imposter syndrome. That script that's running through your head is trying to keep you safe, but it plays off your anxieties, your fear of failure and rejection and inadequacy and uncertainty. Basically, it's questioning your self-worth. Okay? And sometimes this is actually a voice from the past, maybe a parent or a teacher, a boss. It could have been an offhand remark from a friend. And these voices start to become part of our identities, and they aren't necessarily true. Okay? At the same time, many of us are judging everyone else around us. Okay? So we're in this endless cycle of judgment. And we have a choice. We have a choice whether to believe this inner critic, right? We don't have to listen to these thoughts in our head. They're just there. They're there because we're trying to remain safe. But they're just thoughts, and you're doing your best. So the key here is becoming your own best friend and cultivating an inner coaching technique. So if your friend came up to you, your best friend came up to you and said, I really think I messed up that project, what would you do? You'd likely put your arm around your friend and ask them to elaborate on it. Marcia says, I would tell them I'm sure they did their best. But we don't do that for ourselves, do we? Can we learn to be our own best friend, our own inner coach, and treat ourselves with the same understanding and kindness that other people extend to us? Shanti says, I would never talk to a friend the way I talk to myself. Yeah. You need to be your own best friend. So we're going to do a very short mindfulness practice on eliminating that voice of judgment. Okay? So again, let's start this practice by taking a few breaths. When you hear that inner critic, take an easy breath in and take an even slower breath out. Doing the best you're able to breathe in easy and breathe out slowly. Return back to that posture of both ease and dignity. With your back straight, relax your shoulders, soften your belly. Release your tongue from the roof of your mouth. That's one place nobody mentions stress. But that helps relax your jaw. And just keep breathing in and out. So now bring to mind a time where you have felt judged. Maybe at school, at work, by a parent. Maybe it was when you were a child. And notice right now how that judgment is more than just a thought. Maybe it affected how you felt emotionally. Maybe it created some tension or unease somewhere in your body. So when you're experiencing this kind of self-criticism, notice where your thoughts go. Notice the patterns that begin to arise. I'm never good at this. I always need help with this. I don't want other people to know I can't do this. What if I make a mistake? Notice the patterns. Now leave that inner critic alone. Stop wrestling with it. Stop appeasing it. Don't even push it away. Just recognize what it feels like and let it be, and stay with this experience without the self-criticism, creating some distance between the situation and who you are. Every time you breathe in, acknowledge and accept what you're experiencing in your body, your emotions, your thoughts. There's nothing to fix or to change. This is just the reality of what's going on right now. And each time you breathe out, offer yourself that relief. Talk to yourself as you would talk to your best friend in the same situation. What would you say to that close friend? Breathing in, this is how things are. Breathing out, offering relief. And to close this meditation, wish yourself well, not because you deserve it more than anyone else, but because you deserve it as much as anyone else. A few more deep breaths. Easy in breath, longer out breath. And if your eyes were closed, you can open them now. And just notice how that helped to separate those voices in your head from who you truly are. Treating yourself with greater kindness not only helps yourself, but you then begin to extend that kindness to everyone around you. We really need that right now. Okay. The next thing we're going to discuss are obstacles. Obstacles that derail you and they keep you stuck in the past. Okay. So this is truly a limiting belief. This is the mental model we talked about earlier that keeps us from doing what we want. Okay. So we don't make time to exercise, or we sit in our jobs even if we're dissatisfied because we don't really want to go after that new job because maybe we're fearful that we're not good enough or we don't know enough. Maybe we're fearful that we don't have enough time or money to do what we want. Maybe we just feel like there are no options. So you become ruled by these obstacles in your life, and they begin to sap your energy and your focus and your motivation. And the key to resolving this is to build your resilience. Well, we build resilience by taking control when we can. and by accepting when it's not possible to own the control of a situation or a person. Okay? We try to not dwell on I should have or what if, and we start to reframe all our challenges as opportunities for growth. And we do this by connecting to our sense of purpose. Okay? So in this next reflection, reflect on something that sparked joy or fulfillment in your life. Okay? And if that's difficult for you, maybe just list down on your paper 3 people that you admire. So we're trying to get at what makes you feel fulfilled and connected. I'll give you a moment to come up with a situation in your life that gave you this feeling of connection with the world, or coming up with 3 people that you admire. And if you're doing the 3 people you admire, start to write down the traits of those people that resonate with you. Why do you admire them? If you're reflecting on what sparked joy and fulfillment in your life, write down why. What made you feel connected to that particular event? So you're going to begin to notice some patterns, and these patterns are going to reveal your values. Reconnecting with your values allows you to refine your sense of purpose. And when you have a sense of purpose, you can become more intentional in all your decision making by keeping your values in mind, so that things don't become obstacles. So if you think that you wake up too late to go to the gym, and you're like, I'll never be able to do this, and I should be able to do this. Should you? Is health of value to you? Or are you basically just bumping up against an obstacle that you put in place that doesn't need to be there? Okay. So looking at this list of values, and there are many lists out there. This is only 30 different values. I know a lot of my values aren't even on this particular list, which are things like authenticity. Look at your values and connect them to what brings you joy in the world. And then when you feel an obstacle, look back at your values. Is it aligned with your values? Can you move ahead? Can you gain a sense of purpose with that obstacle? Because it is something that's going to ultimately bring you that sense of connection or duty or joy. So we build integrity when we align our actions with our values. If anybody wants to share in the chat with each other what values you've chosen off this list, please feel free to do so. But it's super helpful to keep your values in mind each time you have a decision to make or feel struck by an obstacle or don't really know what direction to turn. When your values are at top of mind, you'll find that it really is easier to come to peace with the decisions that you make. And all those should haves or what ifs all melt away. So people are sharing them in the chat. Those are beautiful. Thank you. And the last topic we're going to discuss today, I would be remiss if I didn't include some steps to recognize when technologists are burned out by their technology. Okay? Technology leads to poor sleep from being wired, all those constant notifications, the eye strain, that lowered attention span that we have because we have this need to multitask. We might have some gaming addiction, or we're less connected with ourselves and others because we're so focused on managing our technology. The social posts lead to fear of missing out. I believe somebody mentioned that earlier in the session, that they get stressed out when their wife looks at social media posts and has a fear of missing out. But they also lead to body image issues and bullying and loneliness and all this stress that comes from technology. Okay. I believe I mentioned at the beginning that a lot of my stress came from recognizing that I had to relearn so much about putting up a site in Drupal when we moved to Drupal 8. And then I went back to my values and I decided that I really no longer, after all these years, wanted to be in the technology space. What I wanted to do was to bring relief to people in the technology space. So this is super real, especially for us, because we are on our technology all day long. So digital well-being is about maintaining a healthy relationship for with your technology, because we can't get rid of it, okay? So let's start with the doom scrolling that we all did, and maybe are still doing, but certainly a year ago, that is what we did. We kept looking for news that was going to make us feel better. We were looking for answers, and there weren't any. So we kept going and we kept scrolling, and we got more anxious. And then we saw other people get anxious. And we went to the stores and we saw them filling their carts with all sorts of products and the shelves going bare. And we got more anxious then too, because anxiety is actually contagious. So then we all turned to social media. All those opinions and the sort of not quite facts that were out there, and they put us on high alert. So we had the pandemic, and then we had all the social unrest that came about. Now, all of that feels like a physical threat. So we shut down, okay? We shut down from this. So a couple of things that we can do, very, very concrete things we can do with our technology, is first, audit your apps. See if your usage aligns with the values and goals from our last exercise. If they don't, it's time to get rid of them or to reassess how you use them. Drop the multitasking. Multitasking leads us to lose concentration and focus. If you have a lot of things to do in a day, chunk them out. Work for 2 hours on a task, take a nice break, pick up a different task. Maybe plan your schedule in the morning so that it doesn't get hijacked by everybody else. Okay? And nurture relationships. Relationships with other people can really keep us going. A lot of people tend to spend their day alone right now, alone at home. And even if you use your technology to promote connection, that will help release some of the stress and promote digital well-being. The final thing is learn something new. Use your technology to teach you something. And that, again, can promote more agency. So we have some comments in the chat about ways that people handle doom scrolling. And yeah, just clean out those thoughts. So in summary, awareness is about catching yourself when you decide not to change your actions. When you're on that autopilot mode, you're not in awareness. Okay? So we want to be an observer. Okay? Observing ourselves, what we think, what we feel, and what we notice in our bodies. We want to begin to recognize those mental models that are holding you back. And we want to do all this with kindness and with non-judgment. The way to do this is by asking yourself what you need. accepting that you have the power to make new choices, that you can reframe your actions, that you can live your values, and that you can understand that some situations or people simply won't align with your needs. But when you stop and take that breath, you bring your brain back online and you get the opportunity to take control of your reactions and turn them into responses. So I truly appreciate having you all here today. If there are any additional questions, please feel free to add them to the chat. I love that everybody spent a lot of time sharing. And if you would like to start a meditation practice, please feel free to reach out to me. I do privates and I also run classes. I do workplace mindfulness programs and create stress strategies. So I hope that you'll reach out if you need any assistance in these areas. And please, if you're really burned out, a mental health expert is truly important to have in your life. So I wish you all a wonderful DrupalCon, and thank you so much for joining today. Thank you for your kind comments in the chat, and have a fantastic day.